Ross Bolen is the owner and founder of Bolen Media. He hosts several podcasts, most notably the Ross Bolen Podcast, and he is also a New York Times best-selling author. Even before he started podcasting, he has always been a really great storyteller, so his podcasting was just such a natural fit for him.
Do you guys have like a long history? So it was really cool because like there is a meta thing going on here where you guys are also rekindling a relationship.
We worked together from the very beginning days of my last company all the way through till like close to the end. And he's also a longtime mental health advocate. I would say he's been outspoken about mental health before it was cool to be outspoken about mental health, because that was kind of the core theme of his podcast, the Ross Bolen Podcast, when he started working on it in 2016, 2017, sometime around there. It's still kind of a taboo topic, I would say, in like the broader cultural conversation, but it's definitely emerging. One of the most interesting things to me about listening to Ross's story, there's such clear parallels to the journey that you and I have been on. And when I come across someone else's story that aligns up with these things that I feel like I'm discovering, it just adds extra confidence in like, okay, this is, I'm not crazy.
You hear enough other people go through similar things and get great results that you're like, it's easier to trust the path.
Right.
And he said he doesn't really get to go this deep on some of that stuff on his podcast. So it's a cool way to like get to learn about him in a different like perspective for his existing kind of audience.
Yeah, to us, this is kind of like the perfect example of what we want this show to be. So if people like it, we want to do more of this exact thing. And if you don't like it, let us know, because back to the drawing board. Before we get into the show, just a quick note. This show is supported by our main company, Chill Country Cannabis. Chill Country is our cannabis brand, and we make really delicious organic edibles from scratch right here in South Austin. They're as good as you can make a cannabis edible, and they are fully legal for now under the 2018 Federal Farm Bill. But you can find full details at chillcountry.com. And we have a special deal for anybody that listens to this show. Use code YNT at checkout, and you can try a 4-count bag of each of the 3 flavors and strains that we make for $20. YNT is the code at checkout, and go to chillcountry.com. You can get full details on the different strains that we make and how we make them and what's in them and all that. Yep.
Perfect. We could rehearse it 18 more times and continue to tighten it up, or we just fucking let it rip.
I think that's good.
Cool.
Without further ado,
Ross Bolen.
Up until the day after my 21st birthday, my experience with mental health, or what that even meant, was almost nothing. And the day after my 21st birthday, I had a really intense panic attack.
You had your first panic attack?
My first panic attack, where
what was it like?
I lost feeling in my hands and my feet. I thought I was going to pass out. And just like everybody who's ever had a panic attack, I thought I was dying, right? I thought I was having a heart attack. I was at a bar for lunch with my friend Barrett, and we were in the middle of a conversation, and I'd probably had like a fourth of a beer, but I was violently hungover, before I really knew what a hangover was, but my body was hungover. And it just, in the middle of our conversation, it just started. And I like went up to the bartender like wide-eyed and was like, I think you need to call an ambulance, dude. And he was like, you look fine. And I was like, I don't feel fine. I'm pretty sure I'm having a heart attack. Like, I need medical assistance. And so he was like, here, chug this cranberry juice. And I slugged 2 giant glasses of cranberry juice. And it sort of started to dissipate a little bit after several more minutes. And so I was like, we got to get out of here. And I got in my friend's car and immediately puked up all the cranberry juice out the window.
Yeah, that shit's like really bitter.
And then I continued to have like aftershock, like mini panic attacks for several days. And I had no idea what was happening to me. And when I called my parents and I was like, I'm fucking freaking out. Something is really wrong. And their response was the response that a lot of people get. It's all in your head. It'll pass. And I was like, nah, I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it's going to pass. And so for the next 9 years, I had panic attacks pretty regularly.
Whoa.
Pretty much every time I was hungover. And I didn't want to quit drinking. And I didn't want to admit the attachment between the panic attacks and the drinking.
Because then you'd have to be more...
Because then I'd have to change my whole life.
Yeah.
My entire life at that point, in college was all about partying, and that was my social life. And then into post-grad, my social life still centered around alcohol. And so I didn't want to change. And I was terrified, honestly. More than anything, I was scared. And I thought I was losing my mind. And I didn't know anyone else who had this experience. Like, everyone that was close to me knew what I was going through because they'd go do shit and be like, "Oh, where's Ross?" Like, "Oh, he had like a panic attack," or he's having like an episode or whatever.
How long would you be out of commission for when those episodes would hit?
It varied year to year, but like the first year, hours out, days in some cases.
What would you do? What was like your cope?
After that first one, I went home and just like stayed in my room. And
did you like watch The Office? Like, what did you do?
No, I couldn't even watch it. Everything was too overstimulating, so I couldn't even like watch anything. I just like fucking laid there and tried to figure it out. And it like jacked up. The first one, that first week, like my bowels were a mess. Mm-hmm. Like it screwed up my system completely. Everything got thrown into chaos. So I was like shitting my brains out, couldn't keep food down, and was basically just in and out of a constant state of panic. And I was alone with it. And I had no fucking clue, like, what to do. Eventually, this led to me going back to Houston and going to a psychiatrist.
While you're still at Grandex?
No, this is pre-Grandex. So I was still in college, 21 years old for that first panic attack.
You were battling these panic attacks by yourself as a college kid in an apartment above Jay's Bistro.
Yeah, eventually. Initially, I was not in the apartment above the bar yet, which kind of shows you something about the trajectory. I started having these panic attacks, and then I just ramped it up. To give you more of the foundation, like, eventually I went, like, I'm on the phone with my parents on and off for weeks, like, I don't know what's going on, but something's really wrong with me.
Are they like starting to take it more seriously at this point?
A little bit, but they didn't know what to do. Yeah. Like their generation had no experience with this. I feel like our generation is the first one to really delve into mental health and try to get a grasp on what it means and how to handle it. I went back to Houston, and my mom took me to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist gave me a bottle with 100 Xanax in it. And that was the solution initially. Here's a refillable prescription with 100 bars in it. There were
so much.
2 milligrams, 2 milligrams a bar. Like I think they were the yellow ones, if I remember correctly.
Which 2 is
2 will fucking.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
2 milligrams of Xanax is a lot, right?
It's a heavy dose,
yeah.
And they work.
They're all the way down to like 0.25.
I get 0.5s.
Yeah, so they have the squares you can break off or whatever. Which at first I was doing. But then at some point I was taking the whole thing. So anyway, that was the initial Band-Aid. It was like, well, when you have one of these panic attacks, you can take this Xanax. Now, anybody with experience in therapy or with anxiety knows this doesn't actually fix anything. It just gives you a way to continue surviving, essentially. Yes. So like, it does not change the underlying problem. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound is the analogy I like to use. So that was the initial fix, was medication, Xanax specifically. I wasn't on an SSRI. I wasn't on an antidepressant. It was just this medication. And, that got me through the end of college. Like I graduated and got a job and moved to Austin, but the same problem was still there. And I was still having panic attacks pretty regularly. I never went a month without one, for example. Like when I finally got to a point years and years down the line where I would go like a full month without having one, it was like a huge milestone. Like I was like, holy shit, I did it.
And did that correlate with you stopping drinking?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think I made it a month without a panic attack until I was 30 years old and had quit drinking completely. So the alcohol was a huge contributing factor for a variety of reasons. It turns out, I've discovered through therapy some trauma, specifically some trauma that was incurred upon me when I was hungover. And so it stuck, you know? And so anytime I was hungover...
being hungover is a trigger.
Was a huge trigger for
crazy.
Me. I can tell y'all this
that's
one.
That's actually like maybe it's great that being hungover was a trigger because it got you to stop drinking.
It absolutely. I mean, that and the combination of ruining my first marriage. But I can give you all the specifics around this one. I was in high school, and it was my 17th or 18th birthday. I can't remember. I want to say 17th. And we were at a beach house in Galveston, and I had gotten really, really drunk with my friends. And that just happened to be when I found out from my mom that my parents were getting a divorce. And so the next morning when I was really hungover, I had to be in the car for 45 minutes or an hour back to Houston, knowing that when I got there, I was going to have to watch my dad move out of the house. And so that is a perfect example of like something that I didn't understand what I'm explaining right now until this past 3 years. And I'm 38. So it took 15 plus years to get clarity on what was going on and why I was going through what I was going through. And it's also just a perfect example of like, people consider trauma to be like, if you were in a war zone, like I think people historically think about like Vietnam and how the veterans came back and they all had PTSD and like nobody knew what to do about it. And that is for sure trauma, and that's probably the highest level of PTSD you can have. But regular people who go through things that affect them and that traumatize them on a different level. It's not a war zone, but it's like in your mind it is. Your brain reacts to trauma regardless of how intense it may seem to someone else. So it's been this long journey, literally, almost a 20-year journey at this point to wrap my hands around like what exactly I was experiencing, what I went through, and what it meant.
So when's the last time you had a panic attack?
A full-blown one? Man, I don't even know.
What an awesome way to be able to answer that question.
Yeah. And I got to a point over the past few years. I've probably had 2 since my son was born, and he's like almost 2.5 now. One was like 2 weeks after he was born. I had one that was really intense, and I was like, fuck, this is awful. It was just like the pressure of parenthood, you know? But
I would imagine that's probably more triggers, right? I mean,
100%.
It's just more now it's like, oh shit, now I'm a dad and a husband.
Yeah, I think most people who have kids go through a version of like the panic that comes after it. Like it's a shock to the system. It's like the biggest wake up call you can possibly have.
Yeah, I freaked the fuck out.
And it definitely served that for me. Like I like 6 months out from my son being born, I was already going to therapy once or twice a month, but 6 months out from him being born, I was like, I've got to fucking take this as seriously as possible.
What was the catalyst?
Going weekly.
What was the catalyst that made you? I mean, I guess your son being 6 weeks out, but like, what flipped where you're like, I need more therapy?
I think I started to realize that having a kid was going to be really challenging. And one of the things that happens to people who have panic disorder or have panic attacks is that after the first one, you live in fear of the next one.
Yep.
Right.
And it is this self-perpetuating cycle, self-fulfilling prophecy.
And it's even affected like your like driving behavior, right? Because whenever you were in the throes of like you didn't know if you were going to have one, you didn't want to drive a car because did you have an experience driving a car and having a panic attack?
So in college, when I started having these panic attacks, and I was in San Marcos 2.5 hours from Houston, my home, and I would have to drive back and forth for holidays or for the psychiatrist initially, and that's when I started having these really intense, and I mean full body tremors, shaking behind the wheel, like feeling like I was going to black out, panic attacks in the car going, 75, 80 miles an hour on the fucking highway. And my only solution to that was to go faster. because then I would get there.
You have to focus. Yeah.
So I would speed, and it was awful. Worst shit ever, man. Like, 'cause I'd be by myself in the car freaking out. You know, I'd call people or my parents or whatever, but like it didn't really help. And at one point, I was in the car having a panic attack on the way back to Houston, and it got so bad that I had to pull over. And I can't remember the name of the little town between Houston and San Marcos. It was like, you know, Pleasantville or some shit. And I pulled over into a gas station, and I went in. I was just sweating bullets, and the lady behind the counter was like, "What's going on, sir?" And I was like, "I need you to call an ambulance. I need you to call an ambulance right now." This is the only time I ever got medical care because of a panic attack. But I thought I was dying again, and a literal ambulance came and got me from this fucking gas station. And they put me in the back of the ambulance, and they did like a, you know, blood pressure test, and they were like, "Your blood pressure's at like stroke level." And I was like, "This is helping. Thanks." Took me to the hospital, gave me an EKG. My dad had to drive up with my brother so my brother could drive my car back, and like it was this whole thing. But so I started having them really intensely, at first only on the highway. I could drive regular on the streets, no effects. But if I was on the highway, almost without fail, I would have some version of intensifying anxiety, which usually led to a full-blown panic attack. And I know that can be difficult for people to understand. Like, anxiety is when you just feel anxious, like, you know, it can almost feel like excitement or like butterflies. Mm-hmm. Panic is what would happen if somebody walked into the room you were in and fired a gun.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what I would have regularly. And obviously, not great to have in a car. Not great to have in a vehicle. So inevitably down the road, this highway thing translated to the regular streets. So I started having them at red lights because I felt trapped, basically. And this took another, 100 hours of therapy to unravel, but it was a combination of like that first story about finding out my parents were going to be divorced and being in the car on the way home, and then also just suffice it to say, when I was growing up, when I was a little kid, when I was in my teenage years, I spent a lot of time in the car with my family that was causing me a lot of anxiety for long stretches on the highway back and forth from like my grandma's house. And, when you're a kid and you have anxiety, you don't know how to process it. You don't know what it is. You just, your brain protects itself. It suppresses it, pushes it down. And so that's what led to eventually all this just started coming out. It's like there was no more room for me to hold it in. So it started coming out, and it would come out at red lights. It would come out, in traffic. Free road with no other vehicles, I was good. But the second that I got that stuck feeling or trapped feeling, it would flare up. So I got put on an SSRI by a psychiatrist here in Austin to help deal with this. She was like, "You're suffering so much. You're going through so much. Let's just get you on an antidepressant."
What was your reaction to that?
It will help. At this point, I was so desperate for anything to help. I had never seen a therapist. I had only seen psychiatrists, and there's a huge fucking difference. Huge difference, because psychiatrists will essentially help you manage your current situation, in my experience. Whereas a therapist is trying to help you solve and understand and grow past and heal. Like, psychiatry is not my favorite thing for this reason, because I got put on this medication for the reason because I was having anxiety in the car. And it didn't fucking help with that. Nothing changed. And then longer term, I got a different psychiatrist, and she was like, because that initial psychiatrist literally broke up with me. She fired me, and I was like, what the fuck? But
Socratic oath.
She's like, "I don't know how to fix you, bro. You're good." And I was like, "Oh, this is nice. Thank you." Now, imagine somebody who's going through this for years and years and years and years. You have a psychiatrist to be like, "Never mind, dude." I got a new psychiatrist. She switched me to a new SSRI that was like more geared toward men, and it like gave you an energy boost and like.
Oh, which one was it?
Vibrid.
Yeah.
And you'd avoid, and it didn't give you like the limp dick issue that some SSRIs would give you, right? And I was like stoked on this, and initially up front, like after that first month, like it did give me kind of an energy boost, and eventually it gave me too much of an energy boost, and I was too amped up all the time, and my anxiety was getting worse.
Oh, no.
Yep.
So I decided to get off that SSRI in
By
2000.
of your own accord or with
2021.
medical supervision?
With medical supervision. If not, I would have died. Literally.
You said that was extremely difficult
It
to
took
get off.
9 months to wean off.
Which year was this?
2021.
Okay.
And I had just hit this point where I was like, fuck this. I want to get off this medication. This is not doing anything for me. I know there's another way to solve this, and this is not it. And so it took 9 full months to wean off. The great irony in this is that weaning off of it, my psychiatrist plugged me in with my therapist, who I've used since.
Nice.
To help me with the weaning off process. But it took 9 full months, and every single day of that 9 months, I experienced crippling depression, eventually suicidal ideations. I would wake up feeling like I was losing my mind. I wouldn't even call it panic attacks. It was just there, like panic.
Yeah, just straight panic.
Every minute I was awake, I was scared.
Yep.
And it took 9 full months. So 2021 was like, it was the hardest year of my life.
Did you have to go to a compounding pharmacy, or were you just breaking pills up?
I was breaking them up. And you know, you get to the point when you're at the end of it where you're literally taking a razor blade and slicing off like this tiny, and this is part of the issue with these medications. It's like,
they're not designed to come off.
they don't want you to
There
get off
isn't
of
a
them.
plan for coming off.
They don't want you to get off of them. And so, I mean, I was having to break off slivers of this shit the last month or two. And now, not everyone has an experience like this coming off SSRIs. I have since learned that my experience was pretty extreme, like on the far end of the spectrum. Because I thought I was going to have to be like institutionalized. I thought I was toast. I thought it was over. I was like, I thought I lost my mind, man. Like, it was the first time I understood like what people describe as crazy people.
Yeah.
Because I became one. And it was the most eye-opening experience too, though.
And this is 2021.
2021.
And what was the month that you were officially like tapered off?
I want to say it was like February of 2022.
Okay.
But I didn't feel normal again, and I didn't feel like I had full use of my brain or control over my thoughts for a solid 2 years after that.
So
Like,
are you still off?
Yeah. I don't take anything. I haven't taken Xanax since before that period.
Bro, I had the exact
several years.
same experience.
No shit.
So in 2023, it was like March of 2023. I had gotten to the point with Lexapro. I'd been on 5 antidepressants since I was 23, and the way they got me on them is they were like, well, because I was all like, I don't want to take an antidepressant because I don't want to lose my authentic self. That was like my fear. And they were like, well, yes, that may be a byproduct of the antidepressant. The byproduct of not taking it is you'll probably try to kill yourself again. And I was like, okay.
Pick one.
That's fair. So I got on them, and the problem is that, just like you explained, different ones there's no free lunch with them, and so different ones have different consequences. Like, Wellbutrin was amazing, but it was too amazing, and it felt like doing lines all day long, and I loved it. And eventually they were like, you're feeling too good. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I was fucking can't even keep a conversation with anyone because I'm fucking bouncing. So anyways, eventually I found Zoloft that worked for a while, and then it turned on me. Prozac worked for a while, turned on me. Lexapro was the most stable of all of them for me. The problem was I started getting that banded, like the band, I forget, there's like a term where you're like stuck in a certain emotional band.
Oh, really?
Like I couldn't feel too bad, but I also couldn't really feel that good.
So you're just kind of meh.
So then I started trying to juice it with like nicotine and like doing other like kind of just like adrenaline seeking behavior to just try to fucking feel something.
Right.
I literally started a group called the Feel Something Club with my buddies where we would just go find the hottest food we could and we would just eat it until we were crying because it was like, thank God I feel like that's how bad it got. So eventually in 23, I was like, all right, I want to come off this shit. Told the doctor, he's like, all right, you've been on antidepressants for a long time. Like, you can't just come off this shit. It's like, all right, cool. So we tapered. It took 8 months. I remember in December, I was officially off of it. I was so excited. I fucking told everybody, of course. January comes around. I had just been suicidal my whole life. I had never had panic attacks. January comes around. I'm working here. And I've never had like a real panic attack, and I had my first one, and then I had several more that day because now I'm afraid of having a fucking panic attack, just like you talked about.
Yeah.
And I became to the point where like I was close to unemployable by like March. And the doctor's like, Lexapro? And I was like, God damn it. Sure. So I've just told everybody about this amazing tapering.
Man,
so now I'm back on the Lexi. And within a month, it was like I was back to old Chris. And so, anyways, I went through all that, but I had to get back on because I almost got institutionalized again. My wife basically pulled the trigger. She's like, I've never seen you like this. Do I need to call the fucking ambulance, or do we need to get back on this med? And that's when I realized that, like, oh, these decisions affect other people, and like people are relying on me to be a stable human. And so like that's where this stuff gets really sticky, is if you want to like come off, you did it for 9 months of basically pure panic every day.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a kid yet, right?
No. I was not married. I did not have a kid. My now wife basically had to nurse me through a year and a half and change of, you know, the 9 months and then everything that came after it.
So she's ride or die?
100%. I wouldn't have been able to do it without her. Like, I mean, so not without being hospitalized anyway.
Think about we were talking about Silicon Valley earlier. Think about the barriers to entry of coming off of an antidepressant.
Yeah, it's not possible.
It's basically not possible unless you have insane resources.
Yeah. What I think's super interesting about both of y'all's situation is I'm assuming this is the case for you, Ross. I think based on the conversation that we had at lunch, that both of y'all really started to make serious, real progress once you locked into therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like it's all this bouncing around on different medications. Not that there's like anything inherently wrong with any of those medications, because I'm sure that they exist because they do help some people in some situations administered in the right way. The problem is psychiatry is kind of like, take these. Oh, they work? All right, keep taking them. You know, there's not then, and then a psychologist or a therapist is going to be like, okay, well, if you can't function, take this, but only take as much as you need to function, and then let's like figure out how to work through the underlying issues so you can come off of this and start facing these things head on. And that's, I know Chris's experience is you're now fairly recently completely off of any antidepressant, and you've regained your access to your range of emotions, which is a double-edged sword.
Yep.
And
learning about those.
So now you are literally just staring your issues.
I'm raw dog in life,
right?
Dude.
Yeah, which is I vividly remember this period because I'm still in a late stage of it. But like when you get off all that stuff and you're just with you again, I had similarly like my anger, frustration, how quick I was to temper, like all this. I started having all these issues that I'd never really had before, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like I was
the
like,
triggers trigger again. Like the Xanax literally prevents the triggers, right. So you can just roll through.
Antidepressants are even more insidious.
Or antidepressants.
Crazy, man.
I told you I was on Lexapro for a year and then weaned off. And while on Lexapro, it was just like everything is absolutely perfect and fine, and I feel amazing.
which is also not reality.
And my personality, which is not reality. Yeah. But it wasn't in like a drugged out way. It wasn't in my personality is different kind of way. It was in a like
subtle, dude.
It's like it's actually a super comfortable bandage over these wounds that otherwise would be triggering.
So for me, it was like I guess my diagnosis, if there is one, is complex PTSD from like a bunch of childhood shit. Whatever.
Yeah, I got hit with that too. Yeah.
You got hit with the complex P?
Yeah.
The CPTSD?
I started reading about it and I was like, oh, fuck, man. Like
that's fucking me, dog.
Yeah, it's always a great feeling in this field when like you finally get an explanation for something and you read it and you go, Oh shit! Yeah, that's.
Hundo
It looks like
percent.
I wrote this. You know.
Yes.
Another example of this that I wanted to make sure I mentioned is this book called Empath's Survival Guide. It's by Judith Orlow, and I learned I'm one of these people. I'm a sensitive person, an empath, and it's the Empath's Survival Guide: Life Strategies for Sensitive People by Judith Orlow. And I started reading it when I was weaning off of the antidepressant, and I got like fucking 8 sentences in and just started weeping.
Yes.
Because I was like, oh, thank God, it's not just me. Like, it's not just me. There's, like, I'm not alone in this,
Dude,
you know?
so I'm going through that where, like, I'm quick to anger, and I'm quick to frustration and panic, basically. And so in therapy this week, my therapist explained that under a certain level of activation, I can, like, talk myself off the ledge. Once I get over a certain point, like, the mental parlor tricks don't really work anymore, and so you have to move to, like, physical energy release.
Yeah.
And she's like, you can get up, you can walk, you can stretch, and if you want to get really weird with it, you can, like, do vocal stuff where you just start, like, getting the energy out
You just
that
have
way.
to release, yeah.
You can take a hot shower or a cold shower. She's like, there's all these tools. And so right now, I still go, like, to kind of blackout land, but we're trying to, like, make that connection that, like, oh, you can release this energy and co-regulate differently. So.
Yes, similarly, I mean, again, I think everybody who goes through this has like a similar version, right? Their own version, but it's in the same sort of pathway. Mine doesn't, it's not sudden. So, like, I'm not as aware of it, like the anger and the frustration and the like emotional overload. It'll build up slowly over time, and then one day I'm like, fuck, I'm miserable again. What is happening? And like the physical release for me has been working out. I had not taken fitness seriously since like high school, and 2022-ish, I started taking it really, really seriously again. And like lifting weights, my garage, I for whatever reason, my house has a 3-car garage. And the third car.
Weird flex, but okay.
Garage. It's like, this is not even a thing in Austin. Most people don't even my neighborhood has random houses with 3-car garages, is my point.
Is one of them for the golf cart?
A lot of people use it for that. But it's not we don't live on a country club. There's no golf course nearby, and I do not know why these freaky-ass white people have golf carts in my neighborhood. But the point is,
It's a flex.
I turned that shit into a gym. And I should say, to clarify, my wife turned that shit into a gym for me.
Because you fucking need it.
And she paid for it. And it was not
She sounds
something...
like a damn saint.
She is. It's not something I could have afforded, but I am in there a minimum of 3 hours a week by myself throwing up weight. And
Sick.
It helps me so much to stay even because I get all that anger and frustration and like... And, you know, just to explain for people listening, like, it's not just like I'm fucking angry. It's like shit will build up and make me angry. It could even be as simple as, like, paying attention to the news. That's a really easy way to get
Reddit gets me tore up.
Really angry, bro. Like, being on social media. Like, I work in the media industry still, so, like, I'm on social media a lot. And even if I'm being careful, I still get exposed to things that really, really piss me off.
What are, like, your biggest things right now?
Oh, that make me angry?
Yeah.
Politics, just anything on the news.
You know what I'm freaking out right now?
What?
I'm freaking out about running out of water.
Oh, really?
For whatever reason, every
what you're
day, like
focused
3 or
on,
4
yeah.
times a day, I get really anxious about us running out of water.
Yeah, dude. I mean, look, there's so many issues.
And then the algorithm knows, so it's sending me shit about running out of water.
No, it's a really great point, though.
Water
because
comes from the sky.
there are so many issues in the world, and if you attach to one, the algorithm will reinforce
It
that.
amplifies.
Dude, yeah, so my recent experience with this is as somebody who has actively avoided consuming any news, any politics, I have no idea what's going on in the world unless it's so big that like somebody I'm close to is talking about it. But then the Texas hemp THC ban bill emerged and completely sucked me in and was driving me insane. I would like get up, check the internet and then start out pissed about how like the injustice and like how ridiculous.
Starting your day that way,
it
though.
got me sucked back. It got me sucked back into this topic that's like hyper relevant to me. But as I've been kind of dealing with it, I've detached again from the issue. And now I'm seeing it as like, oh, this is just like a sneaky way to get me to pay attention to the news. Like it actually doesn't matter at all. Even though it like technically will affect my life, it still doesn't matter because it's going to play out one way or another. And this is an issue where we actually have the ability to do something about it in some even maybe small way. So we've been making content about it, and like that whole process has like gotten me sucked into the issue. But what I'm realizing is like, okay, beyond like saying our piece, like we've said our piece, we're continuing to like surface stuff that maybe is like helpful to spread awareness about it. But like it doesn't fucking matter what happens because something's going to happen one way or another. And then from there, it's going to be like, okay, well, what do we do now?
Well, it's a good way of looking at it. And I think a lot of people, this is my opinion on the state of the world, basically, and the massive issues we have with mental health in developed countries like the United States, is that people are so plugged in, so much more plugged in than they've ever been in human history, right? Like even when we were kids, your parents would read like the Sunday paper, catch up on the biggest stories. The news cycle was like a fucking month long.
Yep.
And now it's 24/7. It's everywhere you go. It's every single social media app. It's a 24-hour news cycle, if that.
And it's terrifying.
And it's all the worst shit you've ever read in your life all the time. How does anybody expect anybody to not be depressed or anxious if they pay attention? And the problem for me is that becoming an adult, I was like, I'm supposed to pay attention. I'm supposed to be on top of this shit. It's my responsibility to be aware. And then the more I've done that, the more I'm like, agreeing with what you're saying, which is like, okay, you can become aware of the issues and you can even do your part to try and spread awareness about issues or even maybe a small piece of fixing those issues. But then you've got to find the boundary and be able to shut it the fuck off, or you will go crazy and be miserable for the rest of your life.
What I actually think it is I think that what I've observed in myself is if I'm in an anxious state, if I have abnormally high levels of anxiety one day, then I'm getting stressed out about all of these external things. I think it's like I have the angst. The angst is related to something triggered me. Something unresolved was triggered, and now I'm anxious. So now I'm going to like project that feeling. I'm going to like find like why I feel like that.
It's like the saying.
So it's like I feel like that because Dan Patrick is a bad man, right? So it's like all of my angst, like the angst exists independent of the political issue, but I'm attaching my feelings to this political issue to give myself like a reason to be angry. Because otherwise I'm just angry for no reason, and that doesn't make sense.
We always used to say like if you run into 3 assholes on the highway, you're the asshole. Like one asshole can happen. 2 is a little weird, but it can happen.
I mean, and I think you're probably like, I'm not disagreeing with you, but like if I go read about Dan Patrick's approach to the SB3 bill or watch some of those clips of that jackass throwing product around for this fucking press conference, I get really angry because it's wrong.
It's wrong. I know, dude.
It's like an abuse of power that you have no power over.
But also, I can watch the same exact content. I can consume like the same exact news and not get all like flustered about it, which to me tells me that there's some other variable that like it's actually me, like
your perspective.
Because if there's any scenario where I can like listen to Dan Patrick talk and not get like visibly angry, then like there's something else going on.
Well, I think it's about learning how to move, right? And like I think it's a really difficult thing to be able to do because I still, this is why I still struggle with this balance of like how aware do I want to be of the happenings, around the world and in our country, and because there's always something, and there frankly always has been something throughout human history. At any given point, there was always something that would be deeply upsetting, whether it be genocide, famine,
infinite, deeply upsetting things happening all the time around the world.
And if your mindset, like mine has been, is that you have to be aware of those things because it's your responsibility. That's a dangerous game to play, especially if you're somebody who's prone to a lot of the things we're talking about. And that shit is something I've only recently started to learn how to balance a little bit better. And it's like, you can't go in every day. And you certainly, you mentioned like you were getting up in the morning and like looking at, whatever the most recent statement from Dan Patrick was. The mistake a lot of people make is getting up in the morning, rolling over and going, let's see. How the fuck is that how you want to start your day, porn. Man? Like, yeah, dude, that's just going to put you in that cycle.
The Social Dilemma does a good job of explaining like that whole shit. You watch that movie?
No, dude, I still need to.
It's crazy.
When it came out.
Yeah, you definitely need to. It's like, I mean, you already know all of the things, but it's like very interesting how they put it all together.
Most of the tech execs are like, I don't let my kid look at that shit.
Somebody explained it to me, and I was like, I was still in the cloud, like, I think it came out in like 2022, and I was like just getting my shit together, and I was like, I can't do it yet. Yeah. I can't go watch that yet because it's gonna fucking make
piss me off.
Well, it is the algorithms. The algorithms really intensify the problem because, like you're saying, there's infinite terrible things happening around the world at all times.
Which one?
And then what the algorithms do is they create a tailored feed to the things that are going to make you the most outraged.
Yeah.
Right? So like now my feed is only SB3 stuff.
Right? Mine's all water. Speaking of water, I got to pee real bad.
Go ahead.
Go.
Is that chair comfortable?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a couple kind of like this in our office. While he's peeing, because this is relevant to you and I's history together professionally, the funniest, or not funny, one of the stranger things to me about the algorithmic nature of the internet in 2025 is when you and I started in the content world in 2010, 2011, this isn't how it functioned.
No.
It was not.
It's chronological.
Big tech had not yet figured out that first of all, it was chronological.
No algorithm.
There was no
algorithm.
Yeah. But even when they first got to the algorithmic side of things, they had not yet figured out that the best way to engage people is by enraging them.
Yeah.
And it wasn't all this, the engagement hack of giving people things that upset them had not been fully developed yet.
Well, and I think that it actually is, I think that was maybe the less sophisticated version of the algorithms. Now I think they're to a point where it's purely interest-based. So it knows what your whether it makes you happy and excited or pissed off and angry. It's going to serve you whatever you are going to most intensely engage with, and it picks up on like the most subtle cues. It's watching your eye movement. Like even if you scroll past through something, like if you fucking engage with it with your eyes, it knows.
I have the best example ever, and it's like you're 100% right. It's so scary how good it is now. Yeah. If like you go to the Instagram Discover feed and your eyes hit something for 1 second and you go back the next day, there's going to be, instead of just that one thing, 3 of that. And then if you engage with that, like the next day it'll be 9 things. But so at one point when my son was had just been born, and my wife and I were talking about breastfeeding, and I got on Instagram the next day, and suddenly I had this breastfeeding content in my Discover feed, and I was like, of course I'm gonna look, because I was like, what the fuck is this, like titties out with a, and it was a woman with a fake baby. And basically, this is just such a perfect example of outrageous internet content. These girls figured out that there was a loophole on Instagram and you could show boobs if it was breastfeeding educational content. Whoa. So chicks that were just promoting like their OnlyFans would get on there with a fake plastic baby, pop a titty out, and so then there were just boobs all over my Discover feed, and like of course my eyes are like boobs, 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 and so it's just like yes, hit them with more boobs, 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 and for like a month my feed was fucked because it just had breastfeeding content everywhere.
I got served the same stuff,
and I was like, what the fuck is this, man? This is fucking insanity, and it took like months of very intentional use of the app to get it to go back to normal. I was having to go find like sports pages and like slam the like button on like 100 different posts to clean this shit out. But it's crazy, man, because it just, the internet game changed entirely in a 10-year span. It went from, hey, get on Instagram and see the pictures that your friends are putting up, to, hey, get on Instagram and see whatever we think you'll engage with the most, which outrage is the thing that people
outrage and conspiracy.
Getting the most out of that.
And so naked women.
And it just becomes this fucking cycle.
Hang on, so
it's a mess.
I want to go back to something. So
Yeah.
whole point of this pod is that we believe that we can heal, and we believe that other people can heal, and we want to have people on that believe that and are actively doing that.
Right.
So I don't know the best way to ask this question, but I have gone through, and it sounds like you have gone through extraordinary amounts of discomfort and pain in an effort to better your mental health.
Yes.
I know lots of people who are in similar positions regarding like their mental health that are choosing not to, like, either because of resources or because of awareness or because of some other reason. It's
it's terrifying to a lot of people, I think.
It's like, it's really interesting to talk to someone who has chosen the harder path, because you have to have some belief deep down that there's like a better version or like a promised land that you're heading towards. Can you like...
Yeah, no, I hear you. Look, I think I got lucky in one way, and it's that prior to college and prior to my 21st birthday and that first panic attack, I had a pretty good life. There wasn't a lot of, there was some rockiness with my parents in high school and shit, but for the most part, I had a really sheltered, good life. And I think...
Sorry, when you say that, I think of Michael Scott in The Office. You got a good life.
But like I had enough experience with a clear head and without anxiety and without depression. And I should clarify, I had never experienced depression until I got on antidepressants, which is just a funny thing. But
you had a taste of the good life.
So I knew it was possible, and it was easy for me to believe that. But then to your point, it had been so many years since I had felt that I started to doubt that maybe it was possible to get back to it. And this is another thing about therapy that's really important for people to understand. I think people think, I'll go to a session and that's going to be it. Like, that'll start the process. Or I'll go for like a month, or I'll go to 3 or 4 sessions and like that'll be it. Nah, it takes really hard work, and you have to be dedicated to this. Like, it's like if you wanted to become a good baseball player when you were a kid, you had to go fucking practice and practice and practice and practice and practice and practice. And there was different shit to practice. There was hitting, there was pitching, there was fielding, there was running, lifting weights. There's all these different elements to it, and that's exactly how therapy works in my experience. You have to go in with the mindset that you're going to get the results you want, and you have to fucking stick with it, and you have to invite in these other strategies such as like healthy eating, working out, making sure that you don't take in too much social media, making sure that you don't watch too many dark, triggering movies, which
sleep
I used to
hygiene.
do a lot. Sleep is a fucking huge one that I had no respect for. And you have to go in and you have to accept all of this, and then you have to keep going back and keep going back and keep going back. And this is another element of this that I know you have some familiarity with based on me watching some of y'all's show. Another thing that really helped me is that when I quit drinking, I started going to AA, and I had some past experience with NA and AA in high school, but those were court mandated, so I didn't really give a shit.
A nudge from the judge.
Yeah. But so I had some experience in AA, and AA, a lot of the methodology of AA and the strategy that comes with it, and what do they say? Keep coming back, or keep whatever. Like it translated for me to the mental health battle, where you have to live, your life has to become about healing. It has to become about growth. It has to become about self-discovery and self-acceptance. And there is going to be shit in there that is deeply upsetting. Like, I learned stuff about myself over the past 5 years that brought me a lot of shame and a lot of guilt. And I got into things that I had never gotten into before, especially regarding like my first marriage and me in high school and even in college. And I had to go look at this shit head on and accept that it happened and learn to forgive myself. That's a big part of it that people really, really, really struggle with in both addiction and in mental health. And it took hundreds of sessions. I've been going every week to the same therapist for about 3 years now. And prior to that, I was going once or twice a month to the same therapist for a couple more years. So let's say like 5-ish years total of pretty intense focus on therapy. And it was driven by a lot of things. You know, I wanted to change. I wanted results. I wanted to stop having panic attacks. I wanted to understand where it came from. And then inevitably, when my wife and I, first of all, when I was dating my wife, she had a little girl that is now my stepdaughter. I wanted to be better for her. And then when we got married and then we got pregnant, and there was another level of motivation because I was like, I want to be better for my child that's going to be born. Then he popped out, and it was another layer of motivation where I was like, holy fuck, he's here. Like, I've got to do this as best I possibly can, accepting that I can't do it perfectly, but knowing that I can do it better. Like, I feel like every generation's obligation is to build on what they were given. So whatever your parents gave you, you have to try to do a little bit better than that. Like, that's your obligation to your kids. So all these things fed into me taking therapy really, really, really seriously and making my life about therapy. And it's so funny because it's now like every once in a while my therapist will take like a vacation. She'll be like, I'm off next week, you know, and I'm like, okay, cool. Without fail, I tell myself like, it'll be fine. It's 1 week. and by the time we get to our next session, I'm like, oh my God, I missed you. Like, because dude, I need that release now. I need like.
Wait, so what are you working on right now? Because you've been in it for 5 years. Panic attacks are at least annual, if not biannual, right? You're getting
definitely.
It's pretty good progress. What's the plan now?
Man, it's been great progress the past few years, especially. And now I've gotten to this point where it's like, okay, I'm no longer in survival mode.
Yes.
And I'm having to teach myself how to enjoy life and let myself be happy again. And it's so fucking hard, dude. It's so hard. When you've been in this shit for like 15 years, you forget
like how Gomer Pyle style.
Yeah, how to just be and how to let yourself experience joy, because it got to the point where happiness felt scary to me because I knew it would go away because of my mental health.
Just waiting for the shoe to drop.
So that's how every day was for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. And now I'm at this point where it's like that's no longer the case, but my habits and my mentality are still stuck in the past. Not all the time, but sometimes. And when I get stressed, whether it be because of work or parenting or marriage or whatever, like that's when I'm vulnerable to backsliding into this mindset and having these ruminations on the past. You know,
how often is that happening now?
It's different week to week, man. Sometimes I'll go a couple months where I'm like, I'm on a really good roll. And then, you know, to be honest with you, like the past month, I've gone back through this thing where I'll catch myself, especially at night, like thinking about past mistakes and things I feel guilty about. And that's how I know I'm in a good place. Because there's nothing to be upset about now. So I'm having to go search.
So what are you doing then?
What
do you do then? Like, what are your tools?
It's so tough because my thoughts spiral, right? So like, I basically have to train myself to stop it, but there's like without doing too many distractions. And like one of the things I use is cannabis, but you have to be careful with that too, right? Because you don't want to become reliant on it. So I have to I space things out, right? So it'll either be like, if I can feel myself, you know, having spiraling thoughts or ruminating on the past, I'll get a workout in or I'll go run. I'm trying to get back into running. My fucking legs hurt and it sucks. It's so hot, but but it helps so much, man. And
so you have like different layers, like
there's different.
So the fact that you're to a point now where you occasionally take low dose cannabis edibles, and that is your own. That's kind of your only vice, right? I think that's what you told me.
Yeah. So and I had like 30 before. Well, I guess nicotine is a vice too.
But you have
nicotine is okay. So
but you have layers to it, where you'll start with a workout. If that doesn't work, you'll go to a run. Is that how it's working?
Yeah, I look at it this way. It's like if you have a toolbox. And I'm learning how to put as many tools in that box as possible. And there's fitness, there's healthy eating. A lot of the time, if I feel myself starting to get worked up, I'll be like, all right, what have I eaten in the past 2 days? And then I'll be like, okay, that wasn't...
a pizza donut.
These were not sound decisions. And so it's like constant self-evaluation, right? And that can be tedious and also can lead to like some of the other things I'm vulnerable to, which is like I one of the things I learned from therapy. I'm so glad this is coming up. I had the worst self-talk ever. Obviously that's probably not the case, but it was really fucking bad, man. I learned that I basically like hated myself for no reason. Like I was constantly critical of myself. Nothing I did was ever good enough. Nothing was ever, fulfilling. Like I looked at myself as like this broken monster. And I think this was in part because of the panic attacks that I started having. You have enough of those without answers and without solutions, without progress, and you start to think, maybe I'm just a piece of shit who deserves this. Maybe there's something fucking wrong with me. Maybe God is punishing me, for something I did, and maybe I just suck. And I got deeply embedded in me, and I only through therapy did I start to learn, because my therapist was like, start keeping track of your thoughts, start checking your thoughts. When I went through the period coming off SSRIs, I don't know how else to put this. I kind of leaned into the madness. Like, I was like, fuck it. If this is happening, let it come. And I sort of opened the floodgates of my mind and let my thoughts just go wherever they would go. And that wasn't a good idea. So,
but it makes for a great movie.
You took the restrictor plate off the Red Dragon.
And so I've been having to put that back on and learn that you can control your own mind. It's yours. Your thoughts are
Do you
not.
Meditate?
I wish I could say yes. I have meditated, and it's so helpful.
Isn't that the weirdest one? It's the weirdest one because it's the most effective thing I've ever tried, and it's so hard to get myself to do.
Because one of the first times I did it, I literally fell asleep. That's how much peace I found.
Yes.
I tipped over. I was in my backyard. I was pretty high. And I was just sitting out there with my AirPods in, listening to this meditation. First time I'd ever done it. And I got 5 minutes in and felt the best I had felt in years. And I just let myself sink into it and literally almost tipped over. Yeah. And it woke me up.
Yeah.
I was
do you ever do guided meditation in therapy?
No.
So my therapist did this the other day, and it was fucking awesome.
It's so great.
Because I've done guided therapy. I've done the apps, which that can be helpful.
Was she the guide, or did she turn some shit on?
No, she just walked me through. Walked me through a guided therapy, and I wasn't super stressed or anything, but I was fucking calm as a damn Hindu
It's incredible.
Cow. Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
And
calm as a what?
A Hindu cow. Where's that from? That's from Fight Club, I think, right? When they're looking
at it's been too long since I saw Fight Club, but
they're looking at the pamphlet that shows you what to do in the event of an airplane crash.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, they're all high in oxygen. Yeah. Calm as a Hindu cow.
Well, but the meditation thing, it unlocked something in me. It was part of the discovering I could control my thoughts thing. Because it was I just let my mind run fucking wild all day, thinking about the craziest, most upsetting shit in the world.
Yep.
Why would I do that? So in meditation, essentially teaches you how to control your own mind. You focus on these things. I've only done guided meditation, so I don't know any other way. But whatever the person is saying, and you're sort of repeating in your mind and locking onto and focusing on it, takes everything else away. All the distractions fade out, all the negativity,
so much noise,
all the bad self-talk, all that noise goes away, and that's where I've discovered that me, void of all that bullshit, is great.
Yeah,
and that I could unlock that was a huge revelation that I did not have before. I didn't have that knowledge before.
You ever read Eckhart Tolle or any of that shit? Power Now, New Earth, any of that stuff?
No. Yeah. Dude, I'll be
now
honest.
I gotta piss, sorry.
Go ahead. I haven't been that big of a reader.
Yeah.
I've tried to get more into it.
Is it the dyslexia?
No, I think it's the ADD. More than anything, I'm just I can't focus for that long. I'm getting better at this, but it's it's challenging. I got some books on basic Buddhism too, because a lot of Buddhist principles tie into all of this.
It works so good.
It's probably the best religion for mental health.
It definitely is.
Unless
you can just figure out how to get absolutely saved.
Yeah, well,
which I haven't figured out how to do that one.
I never figured that one out either. But I don't know. I was raised Baptist, and Christianity, frankly, gives you a lot of anxiety.
You can, yeah.
Which
version you get?
The logical version of it that I think most people get is if you're a good person, God smiles upon that and you go to heaven. If you're a bad person, You go to hell.
Infinite pain.
Infinite pain and suffering is the consequence
So don't fuck it up.
of sin. That is so heavy, dude. And most of us are handed that as children, and it's like, what? Like that's an insane thing to try to wrap your head around as a kid.
Have you ever heard of Vipassana meditation?
No. Say it again.
Vipassana.
Vipassana.
So when I was 21 and I was in the throes of like trying to decide which bus to jump in front of every day for like several years, there were some people in my friend group that had done this 10-day silent meditation. And it's the form of meditation is called Vipassana. And so the idea behind it is that they want you to replicate the experience of Siddhartha becoming the Buddha. And you've read Siddhartha?
I know the gist of it.
Story goes, rich kid, fucking leaves his trappings because it's not working for him, goes and he decides to be a poor kid. That doesn't work either. He gets very confused and frustrated, and he decides, fuck it, I am going to go sit under this tree, a banyan tree or whatever, and I'm not going to move until I'm either dead or I understand what the nature of reality is. And it takes roughly 10 days of sitting still. His mind goes completely clear, and he's struck enlightened. That's like the story of Siddhartha. And so when you do these 10-day silent meditations, you go to one of their centers. It's completely free, which I really like because I prefer when spirituality and money are not commingled.
Yeah, it's nice.
So you go to this place, they put you up for free, they feed you, and the basic structure is you're woken with a gong at 4:30 in the morning. You meditate till 6. They feed you a vegetarian little thing. You meditate until noon. They feed you a vegetarian little lunch. You meditate again until 4:30. You can't eat. They give you some tea. You meditate again until 9:30, and then at 9:30 you're shown like an hour video that explains what you learned that day and what you're going to do the next day from the guru, this guy Goenkaji. And you do that for 10 days.
Damn, that's intense.
And you're not supposed to look anyone in the eye, and you're not supposed to talk to anyone because you're trying to replicate being alone under the tree.
Right.
And so what they do for the newcomers that have never done it before, they call them new students, they will allow on like day 4 or 5 an hour where if you have questions, you can go speak to one of the proctors. And so on day 4, I walked up to I walked up to the guy on day 4 and I go, I am going to kill myself. I'm going to kill myself. This is fucked up. Like, I'm not okay. And he just looks at me and he goes, you are exactly where you need to be.
Oof.
And for some reason, I felt relieved by that and finished the course out. And
when did you do this?
it was like, I was 21, so I'm 39 now, so 18 years ago.
That's crazy.
Is that right math, or is that 8?
Yeah,
18?
yeah, that's right.
What they suggest afterwards is that you do an hour and a half every morning and every night to maintain the practice.
Hour and a half. Holy
every
hell.
morning and every night, so that's 3 hours a day. And they say that a householder can accomplish that. And I just, obviously I didn't fuck it. 21 years old.
Dude, I can't even believe you had the like mental strength to do that at 21.
I can't believe I made it. Anyways, I signed up for a 2-day version in July. So I'm going to go try it again.
That feels more like palatable.
2 days seems doable.
Yeah.
But they won't
10
let
is
you do the short
insane.
ones until you've done the 10-day one,
Oh,
which is
fuck,
fucking weird.
really?
Yeah.
Damn, dude, that's a lot of meditation, bro. But it's also like, I think about this in the context of like humanity, you know, what technology has done to us. Again, I just think there's really something to the fact that we weren't, it's only recent, only this past 50 fucking years, have we all been running around like psychos with our heads cut off, plugged into all this technology, and you know, it's affected the scope of everything.
Did you read Sapiens?
No.
You know the story behind it?
No.
Basically, our brains, like biology's slow, technology's fast.
Right.
We're still operating with an operating system, brain, emotions, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That like still is pretty much made for hunter-gathering.
Like pre-industrialization.
Yeah. And now we're fucking doing this.
Yeah. Of course we're going to have some bad side effects. Like,
Yeah.
But that's the thing that meditation can give you, is like takes you out of that, right? Takes you out of the current chaos of the world and gives you peace.
What you were saying, it's like it requires dedication. It basically, the struggle is You're exactly right. It requires a whole lot of dedication, and it requires an actual belief that you can be a better version of yourself.
Right.
If you have both of those, then you can pursue this path. And there's a lot of different modalities that maybe it's meditation, maybe it's garage workouts, like there's eating well. There's just like which bundle of modalities works for you, but the central requirement is that you are absolutely dedicated to figuring out how to become the best version of yourself, and you have to believe that. Versus, here's 100 Xanax. Take one every day.
Yeah,
Take
dude.
one whenever you have a panic. So like that's the easy fucking American consumerism, like the
Instant
capitalistic,
gratification.
like what's a better thing to package as a product and sell? This really difficult thing that requires like
Hard work, sacrifice, and pain.
And it's just messy. So
Or,
like,
it's Ozempic versus diet and exercise, right? It's like it's
what do you know? It was diet and exercise.
dude, and now there's one. Did you see what Ryan sent? Which
oh yeah.
we're in a three-way text with Ryan Young.
And the text thread is called Spirit Friends.
That doesn't shock me.
It used to be called Lexa Bros.
It was called Lexa Bros. Yeah, we changed it to Spirit Friends since we weaned off.
I love how group texts change names.
yeah.
Like my main one has changed names like 6
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, because you evolve as a group.
Yeah.
But he sent this. He sent this article about this new drug that apparently builds muscle without any resistance training. So now they're saying like Ozempic paired with this drug, you'll be skinny and shredded. But then it brings up questions of like, what the fuck happens to your joints and your tendons? Like if you're not stretching and
free lunch,
putting,
dude.
yeah, it's like you're gonna have a lot of people that look like Barbie and Ken, but they're actually just fucking wrecked inside.
Oh my God. There's literally, like you just said, no free lunch. There's just no way there isn't downside. I am yet to find anything in life where there is not a yin and a yang to it, like a balance to it, right?
Totally.
So that, like, there are things that can help you.
It seems to be a fundamental quality of whatever the fuck this is.
Yeah. No, of life. Yeah, 100%. No, definitely. I also want to note, like, when I started doing therapy really seriously, I didn't have the belief yet.
Right.
It took seeing, like, I knew. Well, that's okay.
So
I
the pain
believed it
brought
was.
you in.
I believed it was possible, but I hadn't experienced anything to really prove it to myself yet. That like, okay, I can really change and get results. The pain brought me in, and the suffering brought me in, and I was like, I'm gonna try like this. To me, it seemed like the most. It was I could make the most sense of it. I love to talk. I'm a communicator. Talk therapy just floated my boat. And then the first time I had like a real breakthrough where it attached to something, and like it was, the biggest breakthrough I've ever had was figuring out why I had panic attacks in the car and seeing the connective tissue and like how it translated to panic disorder and uncovering this trauma that I had suppressed and literally had completely forgotten was the most magical thing that's ever happened to me, because that made everything that followed easier and put me where I am now, where I'm like, I've seen that it works. I've felt it personally. I've experienced it. It took a lot of hours of it being in there and talking with the same therapist, she's a great therapist. And you and I were talking off microphone about like, that's part of the equation. Like you got to find one that works and that knows what they're doing and that like believes in you and in themselves. And
there's a quality scale.
Yeah. You need a competent therapist to guide you. And, it wasn't session 1 where we got to this. It wasn't session 30 where we got to this. It was like session 75 or something where finally something clicked. And it literally was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I think she was saying, my therapist does not talk all that much now. She'll only basically, if I'm focusing on something too much, she'll push me in another direction or like give me more of that, talk to me more about that or like whatever. She kind of helped guides me. But she was saying something and the light bulb went off and I was like, oh my God. And I just cut her off completely and was like, I just figured it out. I just figured it out in my head. Like 10 years of panic attacks in the car or whatever, however many years. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And the look on her face when I was explaining it to her was so incredible. Like, because you see, she had just done her job. She had successfully done her job. And I had made this woman cry many times. Which was always like, it was always hard to know how to feel about that. I was like,
She cried in session?
Yeah, dude. Like, I broke her.
What?
Repeatedly.
Isn't that like a enmeshment issue? Like, what the fuck is
I don't know. I honestly, I still, even sitting here, I have no idea if that was like.
We'll have her on next to have
inappropriate. But I'll tell you this: she's incredibly.
Continued.
I think it was helpful to me though to see somebody connect emotionally with what I was saying.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because it was like
she was really listening.
And again, for somebody that's as stuck in their own head as I am, it was like, how much of this is even real versus like how much of this have I just invented? And to sort of see somebody else react to it was really, it gave me confidence and confirmed that it was real to me. So
it validated your feelings.
Yeah, and I mean, me and this woman have gotten to the point where it's like she might as well be a member of my family, which is weird. But
so that's interesting. I lived in New York for a while.
Yeah,
the only place I've ever experienced like having a therapist as part of the culture is in New York. A lot of people there are like, "Oh yeah, my therapist." It's like, and then people will talk about where their therapist is from or what their name, like they'll like, it's not like a flex, but it's like a
social cachet.
It's
something.
like it's like a fucking thing that you almost brag about having. It's so weird. I've never seen it anywhere else.
We don't have that shit down here.
No, fix yourself, boy.
Yeah,
it's in your head.
Yeah, we're a little bit behind in that realm in the South, but yeah, it's just. It's a journey that you have to embrace, right?
So do you think you'll be in therapy forever?
Yeah, I think so. Unless the money runs out.
How do you think something that we talk about quite a bit and kind of, we're still trying to figure out exactly how to navigate this podcast and like what it ultimately is going to look like. And now you're our second guest, and we've got kind of a North Star for it, but we're both kind of obsessed with this idea that there is an actual path to healing. It almost certainly involves actual therapy combined with all of these other modalities that you use outside of therapy to help with the progress. But because it is such like a monstrous commitment, it's not like you can. It requires some sort of like significant catalyst to get somebody to go from not even it being a thought in their head that they should go to therapy to like, maybe I should go to therapy, to actually finding a therapist, going and committing, right? It's like it's like an overwhelming amount of work required to get somebody to a therapist's couch.
Yeah.
And it might even be the wrong couch.
But the thing is, the block is that people don't know how they don't. If people knew that there was a surefire way to actually resolve these underlying issues that are causing all sorts of problems in their lives, everybody would sign up for it.
Yeah.
And so how do you, like, what is a way that, like, how can more people learn that this is for sure real, it for sure works, and it's not any stigma that you might have attached to the idea of therapy? Fucking throw that shit out. And like, but yeah, I don't know. It's like fucking diet. It's exercise. It's like all the same thing. It's like if you're going to become a nutritionally healthy person, you have to change your lifestyle, right? Like it has to be how you eat, not like, oh, I'm on this new diet. I'm on the keto diet this month, right? Like that's not going to work.
Not long term, yeah.
But like, it's a lifestyle change, and it's like this lifestyle change of like, oh, actually the only thing that matters is sound mental health, and everything else is downstream from that. So literally the most important thing that I could spend as much free effort as I have, it should be spent on trying to get my mental health in as healthy a state as possible.
Yeah, I think it's crazy because when I started the Ross Bolen podcast when we were at Grandex, this was before mental health became a mainstream topic. Mental health became a mainstream topic during the pandemic. because everyone's mental health went in the fucking toilet.
Revealed how bad everyone's mental health actually was once the distractions went away.
A lot of the stigma was removed in 2020, 2021, 2022. We're in a much better place now than we were pre-pandemic in terms of mental health and the stigma and people understanding that mental health is just as important as physical health, because what the fuck is the point of being physically healthy if you lose your mind and kill yourself? So we finally have hit this breaking point in society where it's taken seriously by way more people today than it was even 5 years ago. And when I started doing RBP, like I was trying to find my path toward like we worked at a company where the large bulk of our audience was males in college who badly needed to hear, like I think in one of the first episodes I did a segment that was called "It's Okay to Cry, Bro." And these kids need to hear that shit.
Yeah, you were fucking early. You were definitely early on talking publicly about mental health.
Which felt good for about 3 days until like 7,000 mental health podcasts came out in 2020, and that really upset me. I was like, hey, whoa, I was already here.
This is my topic.
I'm obviously kidding, but so I think a big piece of it is talking. That's what's great about this podcast is like the more people who talk about it and share their experience with therapy, the better off everyone will be, because a lot of it is stigma. I have close friends who have gone through very serious shit in their personal lives, and I have said, like, this is the way. Therapy is the way. I have plugged them in with my therapist. Been like, you call this number or email this email, and you get an appointment, and fuck, you don't even have to go. You could do it through Zoom.
And shit'll get better.
And it will help you if you are willing to go do it and really do it. Like, you can't just go in and sit there. They're not going to do the work for you. You have to talk. You have to open up. You basically, the advice I would give to anybody who starts therapy is like, start with your childhood. Just start talking through your childhood. You will discover things that you didn't realize impact you. But to get back to the larger point, it's like, the stigma and the fear around it, and a lot of people don't want to face themselves. They don't want to look in the mirror and accept who they've become. What the motivation for me is, the alternative is be a miserable piece of shit and die that way. That was not an acceptable alternative to me. No. So with as much shit as I had to unpack, and as painful as it's been, and as hard as it has been, the alternative is so much worse, which is to be a miserable prick and die, rather than ever feeling real fulfillment or happiness or knowing that you're operating at as high of a level as you possibly could, right?
Even to get to the point where you are entertaining that ultimatum, it's like, I just remember, ever since graduating college or staring down graduation, I like some switch flipped for me where I was like, I'm going to be successful. Like, I fucked off in school, high school and college, got shitty grade, skated by. And then I was like, I became like a high achiever overnight when it was like, okay, well, now I'm going to be a professional. And so I look at that as like the beginning of my journey to self-improvement, which is different than the like mental health journey that I feel like I'm on now, but they're like related, but it was like this disconnection. It was like, I'm going to be the best version of myself. So I read every fucking book out there about, like all the, consumed a ton of information through books and podcasts and whatever about like nutrition and fitness and how to fucking be an entrepreneur and businessman, whatever. And I would like, I'm going to run every day, like checklist items of like these different things that are actually like maintenance modalities for a therapeutic journey. But like I was missing the therapy piece.
Right.
So it was like I was doing all of the checklist items that do help somewhat. And it's like, it got me down the path, but it was like you said, your actual like taking therapy serious is fairly new. I'd say for both of us that's true, where it's like we've been on this journey of trying to fix our shit, trying to be the best version of ourselves, trying to be a successful human, and it was only after discovering actual normal sit down and talk to a therapist that like connected. That's like the central important piece that makes everything else work.
Yeah, because all those things you're talking about are great, but only if you know yourself.
Yes.
And getting to know yourself is a real thing that everyone has to do, because you go through this childhood where you're figuring it out, sort of, and then you just pop out in the world one day, and everything is happening so fast in terms of like getting a job, dating, getting married, having kids, all these different things that people do. It doesn't even have to be the stereotypical checklist, but everybody occupies themselves with all this shit. And you kind of lose yourself in there somewhere. Mm-hmm. And you never really form your identity as an adult.
Well, and your mind is so chaotic that you then, like, I thought, like, oh, like, I'm just this, like, super complicated person. And so I'm gonna sit down with, like, some random fucking kid that was good at reading textbooks that made it through school, and like they're not going to understand me.
Yeah, I used to chalk it up to being like, man. Deep. Yeah,
I'm
just deeper, like, man.
Like, like I don't feel like anyone understands me. How is this random therapist going to understand me, right? So, and then,
but it's not about them understanding you. It's about you understanding you.
And it's like I eventually realized, like, oh. Like, this is like a clinical thing. Like, these are trained professionals that have different protocols and modalities that they're experts in. And it, like, they don't need to fucking understand me on some intimate level, because I'm just a generic person like everybody else. Like, we're all the fucking same. So they have these, like, protocols that actually work, EMDR or certain lines of questioning, whatever their style is. Like, you just need a competent, nice person who is, like, enjoyable to talk, and it's like, it doesn't have to be somebody that gets you on some deep, like, personal level.
I look at it as, like, my kids go to Montessori school, and they don't call their teachers teachers, they call them guides. It's very Austin. But
what do you want to learn about today?
That is exactly what they do. I'm like, y'all are going to teach them, like, math and shit, though, right? Because, like, they're
maybe if they're interested,
they're going to need that, right? Like, yeah, there's still some. My kids are young, so, like, my son is 2 and my stepdaughter is 6, so it's fine for now. But I love the concept of a guide, because it's how I look at my therapist. It's like, again, my experience in therapy has not been her opening doors for me. It has not been her giving me life advice. It has not been her being like, here are the things you need to change. It has been her guiding me through self-discovery.
And giving you tools.
I have had to come across the revelations myself. I have had to discover the issues myself. She has not pointed them out to me. At no point has she been like, here's the problem, or here's the event that occurred and that made you feel this way, or gave you this trauma. That has never occurred. It has always been me. She puts me in the right position to do that. That's what her job has been. So, like, people have different strategies and different types of therapy work for different people, like you said. For me, this has been incredibly effective. It has also been incredibly long-winded, because I'm in there fucking... Sometimes I'll finish a therapy session and feel like I just did a podcast and she should be paying me money because I talked the entire time. But I'm also, like... That's a part of it too. Like, I'm at a place now in therapy where it's maintenance-based for me. I'm not going in there and trying to do a shit ton of self-discovery every week. It's not as hard of work as it was for years. Now it's more like, this is my safe place, and I think this is important for people to hear, because a lot of people think they don't need therapy because they don't have serious problems. They don't want to kill themselves. They don't have panic attacks. They don't have crippling depression. So they don't think they need therapy. I'm of the opinion that every single human being alive could benefit from therapy, because this is the place I go in, and without judgment, without bias, this is a woman who will never fucking see me outside of these sessions. I have no attachment to her. She has no attachment to me. Our only purpose in that room is for me to work on myself, or in the case of the maintenance sessions that I do that are more just like talking, I vent, man. I'll bitch about my kids. I'll bitch about my job. I'll bitch about my wife. And it's a place for me to do that in a healthy way, instead of being a prick.
Without creating more
trauma.
It's
it's like writing an angry email and then not sending it.
And then delete it. Yes, it's very much like that. Like, but if I get super triggered by politics or world events or whatever, I'll go in there and just fucking rant for 10 minutes about that. For my part of my session will be focused on, like, getting that evil out of me.
It sounds like it's good practice for podcasting.
It also, ironically, it lines up really well with my profession. Dude, for a while, she would have to remind me, because a lot of the times I would do my sessions in my recording studio. and she would have to say, like, you're not on a show right now.
She's like, you got your podcast voice on.
You're not on a show right now. This is just us talking. And it
use coupon code
code RBP for 10%. She would have to like remind me to stay in reality and not go into like show mode.
Yeah.
And that took some practice too. But like, yeah, man, everyone can benefit from this. That's the thing I can't say that about that many things.
No.
Besides like good sleep, fitness, fucking nutrition, like there's not that many things you can say that about. Everyone can benefit from therapy. Everyone has been affected by something in their life that they could heal from, or just fuck it. If you've somehow lived a perfect, flawless, trauma-free life, which is impossible and no one has ever done, then you're in there like for maintenance. You're in there to deal with the stresses of life that get thrown at you on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's another part of your question from earlier. Like, how do you get more people to buy into this? Explain that it's not just for people who are sex addicts or fucking, depressed or suicidal or whatever. It's for everybody. Everyone can benefit from it, and it doesn't have to be that fucking complicated and deep. It doesn't. It can be, and for me it has been. But it doesn't have to be that way for everybody. So it's one of those things where, like, I feel like sometimes my journey can freak people out. Because they're like, Jesus Christ, that's a lot. Like, yeah, and you probably didn't experience a lot of those things I did. Congratulations. I wish I didn't have to either sometimes. But there is shit that it can help you with, no matter who you are.
Half the families deal with divorce, right?
Yeah.
So, like, just that one right there. So that one is, and I think the fucking problem is that we're good at convincing ourselves that, like, oh, I'm over that. I have a better perspective on it now. And like the thing that I realized in actual therapy is like 40-year-old me is okay with some of the traumatic things that happened in my childhood, but the like child version of me is still distraught by it.
Huge
and
point.
That child gets triggered in unnecessary situations, and then I literally become a child.
Dude, this is one of the biggest lessons I've learned. I had no idea that was how that functioned.
Yeah.
And I did a session with my therapist, probably many at this point, where she made me close my eyes and go hug the 14-year-old version of myself. And it was the most fucked up thing I've ever done. I hated it so much. I was so uncomfortable, and it worked. And applying, like, because what you just described is such an incredible way of putting it. Like, if something triggers me, suddenly I'm 17 again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm grasping for control. And I'm angry as fuck. And I just want to go get high or drunk and drown out reality. Because that's what I did for years and years and years. I used substances to mute myself, basically. And that's effective short-term to protect yourself, I've found. That's another thing I've had to do is go back and forgive the 17-year-old version of myself and shit. But like, it's crazy.
You were doing what you could with the tools you had.
But every version of you that's ever existed is in there somewhere.
Yep.
And if you don't resolve your trauma and you get triggered by something, that version will come out and literally take the wheel from you. So that then a 17-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 9-year-old is suddenly driving the goddamn car to go. I don't know why we need to do a car analogy, but is in control. And that happens to people every day all over the world, constantly.
If you ever experience irrational emotions,
that's probably where they're coming from.
In any situation, that's almost certainly where they're coming from.
Yeah, dude. If you're real fired up and angry and shit, like, it's probably a version of you coming out right there.
And the problem is, though, is like I will get triggered. Still, I like as like intimately as I understand all of this stuff at this point, and as much work as I've done to resolve some of the bigger things, I will still get triggered and not realize it. And only after like the blind rage phase, I'm like, oh, that was my 14-year-old self.
Yeah, it's a shitty feeling when it happens.
Kim is like, yeah, dude, because usually it's like some fucking like stupid fight with Kim for no reason. And the last time this happened, which was fairly recent, she was like in the middle of it. She was like, how this is going to play out. Like, you're going to apologize. And she just like explained it all, and I was so fucking.
Oh man, probably made you want to set your house on fire.
It's like because in my head, it's like it's all logical.
Yes,
why I'm mad.
In the moment, it's
and
so
then
real.
It goes away, and it's like, the fuck?
Dude, the same thing happens with me and my wife constantly. We'll be in an argument where I am 1,000% sure I am right. I've never been more right about anything in my entire life. And then 2 days,
sure of anything.
2 days removed, I'm like, oh, fuck, I did it again. Fuck, it happened again. I was a 17-year-old Ross, and I was arguing about something that doesn't even matter. And not only that, I was wrong.
Yeah.
And then I have to go apologize, and it's always really humbling. But I'm getting better at it.
But how much better is life when you have that awareness, when you can sometimes stop it in real time. Like
it can be done, yeah.
I think you guys are like the opposite version of. I had this problem in AA as well, where it's like most alcoholics are very like aggressive. Fucking, I'm gonna get my way, and you're all gonna fucking pay. I'm the opposite, where it's like, don't mind me. I'll be over here quietly making sure no one's upset.
Oh, yeah.
And so, like, I never get in fights because I should have gotten in fights that I don't get into. Because
you do the people pleaser version.
It's
I'm
the
the
complete
super people
opposite
pleaser
end of the
version.
spectrum,
Yeah.
where you avoid any kind of confrontation.
Just want
Whereas,
everybody
like,
to just be cool, man.
If I'm fired up, I'm going to create confrontation with anybody who's around me.
Yeah.
So I literally had to like go back to a 9-year-old version of me the other day in EMDR. You guys are talking about like talking to your inner child or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had to go back to 9-year-old me and basically like kind of reparent it on like, hey, these were your needs and it's okay to ask for them. And like, no one's going to run away or fucking leave or whatever. It's
okay to speak up for yourself.
Yeah.
And there's just so many different types of human psychology makeups, right? Where it's like we're on the same general journey, on the same path of like self-improvement, getting the mental health as balanced as possible, but like your personal psychology is very different than mine, and we've got some similarities but still very different. It's like everyone's is different, so it's like that's another thing that makes it complicated, is like the right therapist for me is going to maybe be a little bit different than the right therapist for you, for anybody else. The right modalities, maybe it's fucking garage workouts, maybe it's running, maybe it's fucking meditating, maybe it's yoga. It's like, so the only way to do it is, like you were saying, a full commitment where like, well, this is the most important thing that I have to fucking do, so I'm going to turn over every rock and try all the different things.
That is what's crazy to me, is that anybody right now is not constantly thinking, how can I make my life better than it is right now?
Yeah, a lot of people see themselves as a finished product, man. I think a lot of people hit, 25, 30 years old and go, this is it.
Yep.
I did it. I'm done.
Yeah.
And they don't want to do anymore.
Yeah, I get mad sometimes.
Yeah. It's just who I am.
Yeah.
I'm just passionate.
That's just who I am,
Yeah,
man.
I'm just very passionate. I get pissed off when,
That was basically my excuse for a lot of years. Like, I just am really passionate. I just really care.
Yeah.
That's why I get mad.
Don't make me hurt you.
And then I do.
Yeah, because imagine
you're doing this.
Now imagine the scenario where you're in the fight with the wife. You think you are fucking right.
Yeah.
They're like, nobody in the moment could convince you that you're wrong. You're fucking right. Now imagine never coming to the realization that you were actually wrong. That's what I think a lot of people are doing. That's what I was doing for most of my life.
Dude, yes.
And then it was just like brush it under the rug, agree to disagree kind of situation where like you still fucking march through life thinking you were justified in like getting in that fight.
Yes, dude. I have this is a fucked up one, but like when I got divorced, and I started therapy, and at the beginning of the therapy, I would explain to my therapist like how this was not my fault. That that she left and it was her fault, and that she caused all these issues in our marriage, and about 2 years later, it started to hit me, and I was like, "Uh-oh."
Your therapist is bitter tongue.
Dude, no, because in hindsight, she knew that I was going to come around to it.
Yeah.
Like the look on her face, yes. She basically was like, oh, he's in for a real treat. And when I got to the point, I started coming into sessions and being like, yeah, so I remembered this thing that, I think I was passing the blame. And she was just like, yeah, that's what everybody does. And I was like, fuck. Because part of my deal was like I didn't want to believe I was like anybody else. Like nobody.
We're
special,
the therapist.
dude.
It's like a 2-year prank where you're like, I can't wait. He's gonna get himself.
This stupid bastard is gonna figure it out eventually. But it took all these other things happening and all these other self-discovery moments to get to the one where I could finally go back and reflect and be like, oh shit, I made an insane amount of negative contributions to this relationship, and basically was a huge part of tearing it to the ground. But I didn't have that ownership over my own actions, or I didn't have an understanding of any of the shit that we've discussed today. Like, I didn't understand any of these things, any of it.
So you said earlier one of the targets now is learning to like actually enjoy the journey and enjoy your life as opposed to just surviving because you're kind of out of survivor mode.
Yeah.
What are you like enjoying right now? How are you doing that? Like, how are you sinking into it? What is that part of your life?
Just to explain what that even means, it's like I have, for my whole career, my whole professional career, I've been super fucking lucky to do something that I love. Whether it was writing, content creation, podcasting, that's all I've ever had to do. I've never had to do a job I didn't like professionally. I did have to do some jobs I didn't like prior to graduating from college, but professionally, as an adult, I've never had to do a job I didn't like. I have gone through a ton of shit and made it out the other side, Andy Dufresne style, and freed myself from the shackles of all these mental health struggles for the most part. It's a never-ending journey, but it's like a lot of the shit that was making me really, really miserable, I have either an understanding of or a complete hold on. I have a beautiful wife. I have beautiful kids. I have a great house with a 3rd-car garage and a fucking gym. And
no golf cart yet.
I have everything I've ever wanted. And I will get to the end of the day, and the shit I think about is the bad shit, is negative, is my past, is the mistakes I made, is the things I'm ashamed of or guilty about. And that is not enjoying the ride. That is not being in the moment. That is not happiness. That is miserable. That's how you get depressed. And I know this, but like, my focus is trying to stay here, present day, reality. Like my reality is pretty fucking amazing. And getting to do stuff like coming here and talk to y'all about this is it makes me really happy. Fills my cup.
We're all working right now.
And to go to bed at the end of the day and not have that reflected in my mindset is a problem. So that's what I've been focused on. And I have to be really intentional about it, man. I'll have to literally sit there and be like, okay, what are the good things that happened today? And I can always come up with a fuckload of them.
Gratitude.
And yes, gratitude.
Actively practicing gratitude.
To give it one word, gratitude is a practice that I was not practiced in. So I've had to train myself more and more day by day. And that is my focus right now. That is like my number one focus. Finding a way to gratitude, no matter the moment, no matter the challenge, no matter the day, because I have all these things to be grateful for, and I should feel happiness and joy pretty much all the time. Not that there won't be hard shit, bad fucking things that happen, or tough moments, or tough stretches. Like, there will be. I know there will be. But the odds are they won't be worse than what I've gone through.
And I think what's important about what you're saying is when you're in survival mode, I don't think that that's possible.
It's not.
I don't think you can experience and like live in that. Like, I remember being in survival mode where I'm like literally like suicidal ideation shit, and people would say things like, just improve your self-talk and fucking
doesn't work like that.
Be grateful for what you have, and then you'll have other.
No, it takes a lot of work to get to the point where I think you can, like, because this survival mode, I didn't even know what that was. And then I found out I'd been living it for 15 straight years. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I've learned about complex PTSD and was like, God damn it. Like, how many layers to this shit are there?
Dude, yes. One of the weird things I learned in EMDR was if you often revisit certain memories, and if you can revisit those memories very vividly, that is an unresolved traumatic event. Because once memories, at least the way it was explained to me, unless it's something really, really joyous or really, really terrible, it generally is like a fuzzy storage of the memory.
Right.
And if you can recall it very clearly, it's a highly emotionally charged situation.
Yes.
And if it's a good thing, fucking great. Save it to the hard drive as a video and watch it as much as you want.
Right.
If it's something really negative and you can recall the details very well, it's unresolved.
Yeah.
And so that was just a really interesting thing.
I spent countless nights going back to these unresolved memories and not even realizing why I was doing it.
Yeah, you're talking about ruminating on terrible shit.
I was torturing myself, essentially.
And you said in the last month you've been revisiting stuff that you have regrets about.
Yeah, stuff
right?
has popped up where, like, again, like I'm saying, it's never-ending. I'm like retraining my brain, you know? You're literally creating, like, new neural pathways, and that's what, you know, people who turn to plant medicine, it can help with that type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And in my experience, even cannabis has been super helpful with that type of thing because it's pointed me in the direction that I knew I needed to go next. Because I'll tell you, if you have ruminating thoughts and you get on some cannabis, them shits will get intense.
You're going to ruminate.
You're going to ruminate. It's literally impossible to run from in that state.
And so other than cannabis, you have not experienced any kind of
no, and
psychedelic therapy.
And for me, my reasoning is that I did a lot of drugs for a lot of years, and also I'm highly sensitive to medication and to everything. So it was like it wasn't really an option I considered.
There's a lot of barriers to it anyway. Like you have to really feel compelled to do it to actually get to a place where you can.
It almost finds
right.
you. Like if you're supposed to do it, it seems like it kind of finds you.
Well, coming off the SSRI and losing my mind,
that's a psychedelic experience.
And it made me not feel like I needed.
You basically had the ego death.
Yeah.
It was just spread out over.
So I used
Very
plant
long
medicine
ceremony.
to get off of it this time. So
no shit. Okay.
Because I tried to just go the way you did in taper, had the fucking basically the panic attack freakouts, and had to go back on. This time we did a year of EMDR. We did 6 months of ketamine therapy, and then we did, and then I was able to taper off, and then we did psilocybin therapy. Like,
did you feel like it was effective?
I haven't had a panic attack since.
Well, it's a win.
I came off. So yeah, it's like I don't know if I would have been able to do it without the plant medicine, but I don't know. I think everybody's kind of
to be clear, I was heavily using cannabis the entire 9 months.
So I was in a hard spot there because I'm sober, and so I was like, I can't trust myself with just cannabis because like it'll work that night, and then in the morning I'll be like, I'm still stressed.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to show up at work fucking stoned.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not saying that path I took was the correct one. It was the one that I had at my disposal, though.
It worked for you.
It kept me fucking alive, and it got me through the hardest days of my life. And it's just, I didn't want to disconnect anymore from reality or whatever you want to call it than I already was. Mm-hmm. Like, every day I was waking up basically detached from reality.
Yeah.
So then I would have to like use cannabis to ground myself to some degree, and every day was a little bit different. But yeah, I was.
Well, that's what's so cool. There's so many tools out there.
I know, and like we've talked about today, it's like different things work for different people, and you have to know what you're comfortable with and go that route. Like it can be really fucking scary. I also think the more education you have about stuff like plant medicine, whether it be ayahuasca or psilocybin, or people use MDMA therapy now.
Ketamine therapy is completely above board and legal.
Ketamine therapy has gotten
and covered by insurance for a lot of people.
Gotten very accessible. The more educated you are on those things, the less scary they become. I didn't have a lot of education at this point in 2021. I didn't know that much outside of like listening to people on podcasts, which frankly, when people tend to share.
As Tim Dillon said, podcast hosts are the most important people.
Yeah, we are. but that people tend to share like an almost romanticized version of plant medicine on podcasts.
Totally.
And that can kind of be a turnoff for me because I'm like, it sounds like somebody describing like a movie to me. And I can't make that connect with what I've got going on.
It's like a marketing pitch for them.
Yeah. So it can be tough from that angle.
Which is how I learned about them, and then I experienced a really intense one. I was like, this is not what I was expecting. This is way gnarlier, way more difficult, way more uncomfortable than what I was expecting.
It's really messy.
But for me, what it did is, because I feel like the big problem is, in my younger years, there was no space between myself and my thoughts. It's like I was my thoughts.
Same.
And my thoughts were always chaotic because I was always fucking partying, drinking, you know. And so like it was basic yeah, with the psychedelic experience, like just so deconstructs your pre-existing beliefs about the world and the way things work in such an intense way that you then return like a blank slate and you're like, what do I actually believe is real? You know, what do I believe is actually going on? And for whatever reason, that experience gives you then this like distance where it's like, okay, I almost exist as this like thing hovering.
The observer mind.
Yeah, the observer mind, right? Yeah. To where I can now watch myself get triggered and get into a bad mood and like start fights. And even in the moment I could be like, I know what's going on right now, but I'm just going with it. Like,
no, it changes your perspective entirely.
Yeah, but and it's interesting that you've been able to get there without this like facilitated psychedelic experience, because for me that's the only thing that's been able to actually give me that space and that perspective. It
took a lot of time.
I guess 9 months of being on the verge of a psychotic break is probably like a really long, intense ceremony.
And then you
got on the other side of it, and it gives you profound
And he did use a
perspective.
mild psychedelic, cannabis, to do that.
Which maybe
which is honestly the best testimony we've ever heard on this show.
Well, I don't know, because I'm also sitting here thinking like maybe the cannabis was part of the culprit in the like maybe.
Dude, there's no way for me to know.
There's no way to know.
I'll say this: the experience I've had in therapy with cannabis has been extremely enlightening. Where like I can do a session and then like take some gummies that night, and the way it helps me process things and the way it opens me up to self-exploration and to, because I mean that's basically what I've always loved about weed or cannabis. It's always been this like mind-opening experience for me, right? To a lesser degree than more hardcore psychedelics. Because like I did LSD once when I was 18, and it blew my fucking mind and changed the way I looked at the world. I don't know how much of it stuck, but for that several days after and during the trip, which was like 12 hours, I was like, holy shit, what the fuck? I didn't even know this was possible. I didn't know this was a thing. I thought people were making this shit up. Like, it changed everything in terms of like how I looked at the universe. Like, you know, however briefly it may have been, it had a lasting impact. But with cannabis, it's always given me an ability to self-reflect at a much deeper level than I'm capable of without it. And I think over time, you get better and better and better at that self-reflection without the need of any type of help. But like, I still enjoy that experience on a regular basis where it's like, it just opens me up to...
You essentially had cannabis-assisted therapy.
Well,
basically.
What's interesting, first of all, you have had a giant, intense psychedelic experience. So
yes.
that is an experience you have, that your psyche has had, in an unstructured way, but you've still been to that realm,
right?
Which
and you still remember it.
And then now you, from everything I can gather, you use cannabis in a super responsible way. You're not just stoned all the time.
No, right, yeah. I was stoned all the time at one point in my life. Yeah.
And so it's like, I think, I don't know. For my experience is cannabis used in moderation and used in a way where you don't build a big tolerance, where you're experiencing blocks of time with complete sobriety, and then you experience cannabis, that's when it actually really works well. If you're using it all the time, it kind of like just becomes a numbing agent.
You couldn't be more correct. That is incredibly accurate, yes.
Which is something that as like two guys building a cannabis business where we're trying to sell cannabis gummies, like we often talk about that idea that like while it's a mild psychedelic, it's still a psychedelic. It's still a psychedelic plant in this category of really powerful, intense, oftentimes confusing experiences that it's only a mild psychedelic if you do a reasonable amount of it. If you do a whole lot of it, it's not so mild, right?
Oh, no.
He said a respect for, you said earlier, like, I didn't have a respect for sleep hygiene.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, there are people that don't have a respect for cannabis.
And I didn't have that either at a point, you know? I've been what people would define as a stoner off and on since high school. Different periods, different ways of going about it. But, like, I think the essential piece to me for understanding the responsible use of cannabis and how it can be not just like the fun, relaxing drug that people like to define it as, but also like a tool for the things we're talking about today. Therapy was the thing that allowed me to establish that healthy relationship. Mm-hmm. Like prior to that, I didn't have, it was just, I needed numbing agents. I needed shit to drown out reality. I needed shit to suppress my real feelings. I needed shit to, I didn't have any coping skills. I'm glad we got to this point because this is an extremely important part of my journey. What I learned through therapy is that I did not have a single healthy coping skill at all. I grew up and did not establish a single fucking healthy coping skill. The coping skills that I was attracted to all made things worse and were all temporary fixes. And I used all of the things that I used completely irresponsibly and in a way that was more damaging than helpful.
But you were self-medicating.
Self-medicating my whole life, pretty much, from 14 years old on and until 30. And that's when I quit alcohol and when I got serious about therapy is when I started to realize this and establish a healthier relationship with myself and the substances that can be used to facilitate the growth that I am looking for in my life. And that what you just explained about cannabis is something that I don't. A lot of people who are stoners do not want to hear it.
No.
They want to believe that you can be high all day, every day, and that's just fucking fine, and there's no amount of it that's bad, and it's like, that doesn't exist with any substance.
No.
Literally any substance. Too much of it is bad. And that's
to the yin and the yang.
It's a frustrating part of the kind of cannabis culture that got developed in you know, at least the part I'm familiar with is in the United States. And that stoners are not willing to hear like that argument is problematic because it keeps it from becoming more socially acceptable and societally acceptable, and it keeps the stigma from getting removed. But firsthand, I can tell you that what you just explained has been my experience. It's that if you respect it and you use it in moderation and you use it, give yourself blocks of sobriety where you have nothing altering your mental state, and then use cannabis, and you can even use it a few days at a time. What I've talked with about my therapist is that my limit tends to be if I do it more than about 9 times in a 2-week span, it starts to get rough. Now,
it's amazing that you have that level of clarity.
Well, it took time to get to that level.
Basically.
But then I need a break.
Yeah.
So if I get to 9 days in a 2-week span where I lean on it or where I utilize it, then I need a break, and I have to make sure I track that to give myself that space. Otherwise, the energy gets messed up, man. Mm-hmm. I don't know how else to put it, but it screws with the vibes. So you have to respect that, and that's like that was always my biggest problem with substances. Is like I would drink so much that I would freak out the next day, and I knew that this was a part of it. I knew alcohol subliminally, subconsciously. I fucking knew. But I didn't want to admit it to myself.
You knew that you were willing to pay that price.
Exactly.
For that little bit of freedom.
Yeah.
And that little bit of escape.
It was a pathetic exchange, though.
It was a terrible trade.
Alcohol is one of the worst trade-offs.
Oh,
like, I can't
It's a bad
believe
trade.
that I...
Terrible.
Yeah, it's... Anyway,
It's a bad trade. Well, you have... I think we're good here.
We went off, dude.
We fucking went off, and I thought it was awesome. And you
How long
are...
we'd run?
I don't know.
It's 1:08, so we've gone two full hours.
Holy shit. Hopefully those all had enough memory for that.
Damn. That did not feel like 2 hours.
Dude.
That's awesome. Yeah, fuck yeah. Well, this works.
This was
I guess.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
You're very well spoken and like very good at like framing up your thoughts on some of the stuff.
I appreciate it. I haven't really gotten to like download everything like that, you know? I talk about this type of shit some on my show, but it's like my show is not really about this the way that y'all's is. It's not focused. So I'm always like scared of overloading people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
this
is like
the green chair is for trauma dumping.
Yes, dude. And this is like I'm telling you, it's like it's so fresh for me because I'm still doing it.
Yeah, you're still recovering,
I've
dude.
still hit like these.
Dude, the craziest thing is like all three of us are kind of at like the same spot in our lives. Like different, like the two of us could not have like different paths to coming together here, and then you and I had an intermingled storyline, and then completely broke off and haven't talked forever. And it's like we've kind of been on the same journey of sorts. So interesting.
39.
So our age group, dude.
Yeah.
This is when it's like make or break.
Yeah.
I feel like you get to around 40, late 30s, and you've been in the real world and in adulthood for enough years to where you're finally like, it's kind of shit or get off the pot.
Yeah, it's either I'm going to settle or I'm going to do something.
A lot of people are like, nope, this is who I am. Fuck it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people like us are like, okay, I'm going to like dig in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to find out what the hell this is, what the fuck is going on, how I can get better at it, and like where's the growth.
Yeah.